Before your first tear ever touched your face, Allah already knew the pain your heart was carrying. Some tears do not fall from the eyes. Some tears fall inside the heart, where nobody can see them, nobody can count them, and nobody can understand how heavy they really are. My dear sister, maybe you smiled while your soul was tired. Maybe you stayed quiet because explaining your pain became too exhausting. Maybe you made dua with a tired voice, asking, Ya Allah, why did this happen to me? But listen carefully. Your pain was never invisible. Your tears were never ignored. Your heartbreak was never meaningless. Before the world noticed your smile, Allah already knew your wound. Before anyone heard your story, Allah already knew every chapter you survived in silence. And sometimes, the pain you thought would destroy you becomes the very path that brings you back to Allah, stronger, wiser, softer, and closer than before. So do not believe your tears were wasted, because Allah sees what people overlook. 1. Allah sees every tear before anyone else does. My dear sister, one of the greatest lies pain tells you is that you have been forgotten. When people stop asking how you are, when your messages go unanswered, when your kindness is repaid with silence, your heart begins to wonder if anyone truly sees what you are carrying. But this is where faith changes everything. Before a single tear rolled down your face, Allah already knew the pain hidden inside your heart. Before you whispered your dua in the darkness of the night, He heard every word your lips could not even speak. Sometimes you cry where no one can see you. You smile during the day while your heart quietly breaks inside. People may misunderstand your silence, overlook your sacrifices, or never realize how much you have endured. But Allah never overlooks a single moment of your struggle. Every tear, every sleepless night, every silent heartbreak is known to Him with perfect knowledge and perfect mercy. Never believe that your pain has no value simply because people ignored it. The one who created your heart knows exactly why it hurts. He knows every disappointment, every betrayal, every prayer you have repeated with hope. What feels invisible to the world is completely visible to Allah. So do not measure your worth by the attention of people. Measure it by the care of your Lord. Your tears are not signs of weakness. They are moments that bring you closer to the one whose mercy never fails. Even when you cannot understand what Allah is doing, you can trust that He is never absent from your story. He sees every tear before anyone else does, and in His perfect wisdom, not a single tear is ever wasted. 2. Your heart had to break so your soul could heal. My dear sister, not every broken heart is a punishment. Sometimes it is Allah's way of rescuing you from a future that would have wounded you even more. We often pray for happiness, but Allah first prepares our hearts to receive it. That preparation is not always comfortable. Sometimes it comes through disappointment, rejection, and the painful ending of relationships we thought would last forever. In those moments, it feels as if everything is falling apart. But in reality, Allah may be removing the very things that were slowly pulling you away from Him. A heart that has never been tested often depends too much on people, but a heart that has been broken learns to depend on Allah alone. That is where true healing begins. Your pain teaches you patience, your tears teach you humility, and your loneliness becomes an invitation to draw closer to your Lord. Every sincere dua made in the darkness carries a beauty that only Allah fully knows. Do not think your broken heart means your story is over. Sometimes Allah allows one chapter to close because He is writing a far more beautiful one. The pain that shattered your expectations may be the same pain that rebuilds your faith, strengthens your character, and purifies your soul. One day you will realize that your heart did not simply break. It was being gently transformed into a heart that trusts Allah more than it trusts this temporary world. 3. Allah removes what hurts you to protect what awaits you. My dear sister, one of the hardest lessons to accept is that not everything you lose is a loss. Sometimes what feels like the greatest heartbreak of your life is actually one of Allah's greatest acts of mercy. We naturally hold on to people, dreams, and plans because we believe they will bring us happiness. We pray for them, sacrifice for them, and imagine a future built around them. Then suddenly everything changes. Someone leaves, a relationship ends, a door closes, a dream falls apart. Your heart asks, Ya Allah, why did you let this happen? But perhaps the better question is, Ya Allah, what are you protecting me from that I cannot yet see? Allah sees what your eyes cannot see. He knows every conversation that never happened, every betrayal that was hidden, every disappointment waiting in the future, and every danger your heart could never recognize on its own. What appears to you as the end of something beautiful may actually be the beginning of His protection. The one who knows the unseen never removes something without wisdom, even when that wisdom is hidden from us. Many people spend years mourning what Allah removed, never realizing they were grieving something that would have slowly destroyed their peace. Sometimes the person you desperately wanted would have taken you further away from Allah. Sometimes the opportunity you cried over would have filled your life with regret. Sometimes the friendship you tried so hard to save would have continued draining your heart until nothing remained. Allah knows the future of every path long before you even take the first step. His knowledge is complete while ours is limited. This is why faith asks us to trust even when we do not understand. It is easy to trust Allah when life goes according to our plans. The real test comes when His plan looks completely different from ours. That is when your heart must remember that Allah's wisdom is never separated from His mercy. He does not close doors because He enjoys seeing His servants suffer. He closes them because He knows which doors lead to peace and which lead to pain. Think about how many times in your life you thanked Allah for something that never happened. Perhaps there was a person you once believed you could never live without, but today you thank Allah that relationship never continued. Perhaps there was a decision that felt heartbreaking at the time, yet years later you clearly saw how Allah protected you from harm. These moments remind us that Allah's delays and removals are often hidden gifts wrapped in temporary pain. Sometimes Allah removes people not because they are evil, but because they are not written for your journey. Not everyone who enters your life is meant to stay. Some people arrive to teach you patience, others teach you self-respect. Some reveal your weaknesses so you can grow stronger. Others remind you that your heart should never become dependent on anyone more than it depends on Allah. Every meeting and every goodbye carries a lesson if you are willing to see it through the eyes of faith. My dear sister, never confuse Allah's protection with rejection. Just because something ended does not mean you were forgotten. Just because a prayer was answered differently does not mean it was ignored. Allah may have been protecting your dignity, your faith, your future family, your peace of mind, or even your relationship with Him. There are blessings you will never recognize because Allah protected you before they could become disasters. The world often teaches us to chase what we want at any cost. Islam teaches us something far more beautiful. We are taught to strive, make sincere dua, and then trust Allah with the outcome. If He gives, we thank Him. If He withholds, we still trust Him. If He removes, we believe His wisdom is greater than our understanding. That kind of trust does not come easily, but it brings a peace that nothing in this world can replace. So if you are mourning someone or something today, do not only ask Allah to return what you lost, ask Him to open your heart to His wisdom. Ask Him to replace what was taken with something better for your deen, your dunya, and your akhirah. Believe that every closed door is making room for the right one. Every painful goodbye is leading you closer to the people written for you, and every tear shed with patience is seen by the most merciful. One day, perhaps sooner than you imagine, you will look back at this season of your life with gratitude instead of grief. You will realize that Allah was never taking away your happiness. He was protecting the happiness He had already written for you. And in that moment, your heart will finally understand a truth it could not see through its tears. Allah never removes what hurts you unless He intends to guide you towards something far better. 4. Every delay and disappointment is preparing you for something greater. My dear sister, One of the most painful feelings in life is believing that everyone else is moving forward while you are standing still. You watch other people getting married, building families, achieving their dreams, finding peace, and smiling again, while your own prayers seem to remain unanswered. Days become months, and months become years. Slowly, a dangerous question begins to grow inside your heart. Ya Allah, have you forgotten me? But never allow shaitan to convince you that Allah's delay means Allah's rejection. These are not the same thing. A delay is not a denial. A closed door is not the end of your story. Sometimes Allah delays what you desperately want because He loves you enough to give it to you at the perfect time instead of the quickest time. Think about a seed buried beneath the earth. To someone who does not understand, it appears forgotten. It sits in darkness where no one notices it. There is no sign of growth, no evidence that anything is happening. But beneath the surface, Allah is preparing it. Roots are spreading deeper before the tree is allowed to rise higher. If the tree grew before its roots became strong, the first storm would destroy it. Your life is often the same. There are seasons when Allah is growing roots that nobody else can see. While you think nothing is changing, He is strengthening your faith, increasing your patience, purifying your intentions, softening your heart, and teaching you lessons that comfort could never teach. The greatest transformations often happen in silence. Sometimes you ask Allah to change your circumstances, but Allah first decides to change you, because the blessing you are asking for requires a stronger version of yourself. Imagine receiving everything you wanted before your heart learned gratitude. Imagine entering marriage before learning patience. Imagine achieving success before developing humility. Imagine receiving influence before strengthening your relationship with Allah. Some blessings become tests if they arrive before you are spiritually ready to carry them. Allah knows exactly when your heart is prepared. He knows the weight you can carry. He knows the timing that will protect your faith. He knows the future you cannot see. This is why His timing is always wiser than our emotions. Many of the prophets experienced long periods of waiting. Their lives remind us that waiting is not proof of Allah's absence. It is often proof that Allah is preparing something beyond human imagination. During those years of waiting, they continued making dua, continued trusting Allah, and continued doing good even when they did not immediately see the results. This teaches us something beautiful. Faith is not only about trusting Allah after receiving what you prayed for. Real faith is continuing to trust Him while you are still waiting. Perhaps today you are waiting for healing after heartbreak. Perhaps you are waiting for the right spouse. Perhaps you are waiting for your family to understand you. Perhaps you are waiting for financial ease. Perhaps you are waiting for peace after years of emotional exhaustion. Whatever you are waiting for, remember this: Allah is never late. The one who created time is never controlled by time. He knows the exact day your prayer will become your reality. He knows the exact moment your tears will become gratitude. He knows exactly when your heart will finally understand why everything happened the way it did. Sometimes disappointment is one of Allah's greatest protections. You believed a certain opportunity would complete your life, but Allah saw the hidden pain inside it. You wanted someone to stay forever, but Allah knew they would eventually damage your heart and your deen. You begged for a door to open, while Allah knew another door carried far greater barakah. Our vision is limited to today. Allah's knowledge reaches your entire future. That is why disappointment often becomes divine redirection. One of the greatest mistakes we make is comparing Allah's plan for our lives with someone else's journey. Comparison quietly steals contentment. Every person has a different test, a different timeline, and a different destination. The blessing that arrives quickly for someone else may not be good for you at this moment. Likewise, your delayed blessing may carry far more goodness than you can currently imagine. Allah never compares His servants. So stop measuring your life against people whose journey was never meant to be yours. Your story is unique. Your test is unique. Your reward is unique. My dear sister, every difficult season is shaping qualities that no classroom can teach. Pain teaches compassion, waiting teaches patience, loneliness teaches dependence upon Allah, rejection teaches self-respect, disappointment teaches surrender. Every hardship is quietly building a woman whose strength comes from faith instead of circumstances. One day you will look back at this chapter and realize that Allah was never ignoring your prayers. He was answering them in ways your heart was not yet mature enough to understand. What felt like silence was actually preparation. What felt like delay was actually protection. What felt like disappointment was actually mercy wearing a disguise. So do not lose hope because your timeline looks different. Continue making dua with certainty. Continue improving yourself. Continue protecting your relationship with Allah. Continue believing that every unseen moment is bringing you closer to the future He has already written. Because when Allah finally opens the door He has been preparing for you, you will understand why every other door had to remain closed. You will realize that every delay carried wisdom, every disappointment carried protection, and every unanswered prayer was simply waiting for the perfect moment chosen by the one whose knowledge, mercy, and love are greater than anything your heart could ever imagine. 5. The woman who trusts Allah never loses what is meant for her. My dear sister, one of the greatest battles you will ever fight is not against the world. It is against the fear that what is meant for you might end up belonging to someone else. That fear quietly steals your peace. It makes you overthink every delay, every unanswered message, every closed door, every opportunity that slips away, and every person who walks out of your life. Slowly, your heart begins to believe that if you do not chase harder, hold tighter, or sacrifice more, you will lose the happiness you have been praying for. But Islam teaches a truth that completely changes the way a believer sees life. What Allah has written for you can never be taken by another person. And what Allah has not written for you can never become yours, no matter how desperately you try to hold on to it. This is not simply a comforting thought. It is a promise that brings peace to every believing heart. Allah's decree is never defeated by people's opinions, jealousy, rejection, or betrayal. No human being has the power to steal the provision, love, opportunities, or blessings that Allah has already written in your name. That is why a woman who truly trusts Allah begins to live differently. She still makes dua. She still works hard. She still hopes for beautiful things. But she no longer allows fear to control her decisions. She understands that chasing people will never bring what Allah has withheld, and losing people will never remove what Allah has already planned for her. Many women exhaust themselves trying to force relationships that were never meant to survive. They spend years proving their worth to someone who has already stopped appreciating them. They silence their own pain just to keep another person happy. They ignore red flags because they fear loneliness more than disrespect. They keep giving chance after chance because they believe letting go means losing everything. But my dear sister, sometimes letting go is not losing. Sometimes letting go is trusting Allah enough to believe that His plan is kinder than your attachment. Remember that Allah is Al-Wakil, the best trustee of all affairs. When you place your heart in His care, you are placing it with the one who never makes mistakes. Human beings disappoint because they are imperfect. People change because their hearts change. Circumstances change because life changes. But Allah never changes. His mercy never weakens. His wisdom never fails. His promises never break. This is why reliance upon Allah is one of the greatest sources of emotional strength. The more you trust Him, the less you become a prisoner of people's actions. You stop living in constant anxiety over whether someone will stay. You stop measuring your value by how much attention you receive. You stop believing that another person's decision defines your future, because your future has never been in their hands. It has always been in Allah's hands. Sometimes Allah allows people to leave because He wants you to discover that your peace was never supposed to depend on them. As long as your happiness is controlled by another person, your heart remains vulnerable. But when your happiness becomes rooted in your relationship with Allah, no human being can truly take it away. This does not mean the pain disappears overnight. Even the strongest believers feel heartbreak. Even the prophets experienced grief. Even righteous people cried. Islam never teaches us to become emotionless. Instead, it teaches us where to carry our emotions, not to people who constantly disappoint us, but to the one who always listens. Every sincere dua whispered during your sadness is an act of worship. Every tear shed while asking Allah for strength is seen. Every moment of patience is recorded. Nothing is wasted. One of Shaitan's favorite tricks is convincing you that Allah's delay means someone else has taken your place. He whispers that your chance is gone, that your time has passed, that everyone else is moving ahead while you are being left behind. But these whispers are designed to weaken your trust in Allah. Never forget this beautiful reality. Allah does not divide blessings the way people divide possessions. His treasures never decrease. His mercy never runs out. His ability to bless you is never limited by what He gives to someone else. If another woman receives a blessing before you, it does not mean your blessing has disappeared. Allah's generosity has no limits. Your rizq has your name written upon it. Your opportunities have your name written upon them. The people who are truly meant to walk beside you have their names written in your story by Allah Himself. Nothing and no one can erase what Allah has already written. This understanding frees your heart from unhealthy attachment. You stop competing with people. You stop comparing your journey. You stop envying what others have. Instead, you begin thanking Allah for what He is doing in your own life, even if you cannot yet see the complete picture. Contentment is not having everything you want. Contentment is trusting Allah with everything you do not yet have. Perhaps today your prayers still feel unanswered. Perhaps you are waiting for healing, waiting for marriage, waiting for a righteous spouse, waiting for financial ease, waiting for your family to understand you, waiting for peace after years of emotional pain. Do not let waiting convince you that Allah has forgotten you. Sometimes the greatest blessing is not receiving what you asked for immediately. Sometimes the greatest blessing is becoming the woman who is spiritually prepared to receive it. Allah is never only preparing your future, He is preparing you for your future. Those are two completely different things. Because if your heart reaches the blessing before your faith is ready, the blessing itself may become a trial. Allah loves you too much to allow that. So He strengthens your patience. He deepens your trust. He purifies your intentions. He teaches you to seek Him before seeking His gifts. Then, when the right moment arrives, you receive the blessing with gratitude instead of pride, with wisdom instead of carelessness, and with dependence upon Allah instead of dependence upon people. My dear sister, imagine standing before Allah on the Day of Judgment and discovering that every disappointment protected you from something worse. Every delay increased your reward. Every heartbreak brought you closer to Him. And every unanswered prayer was preparing something far more beautiful than anything you could have imagined. On that day, you will not regret trusting Allah. You will regret every moment you doubted His wisdom. So continue walking with faith even when the road feels lonely. Continue making dua even when you cannot see immediate answers. Continue protecting your modesty, your dignity, and your relationship with Allah. Continue believing that your Lord is writing a story far more beautiful than the one you tried to write for yourself. Because the woman who truly trusts Allah never loses what is meant for her. She may wait, she may cry, she may struggle, she may feel tired, but she never loses. For Allah never fails those who place their complete trust in Him. And His plan has always been more beautiful than the plans we create for ourselves. 6. Your pain is quietly becoming your greatest strength through Allah. My dear sister, there comes a moment in every believer's journey when she realizes that Allah was not only changing her circumstances, He was changing her. At first, all you notice is the pain. You notice the disappointment, the loneliness, the tears that seem to have no end. You remember the nights when your heart felt too heavy to carry, and the mornings when smiling became harder than crying. You wonder why life became so difficult when all you wanted was peace. But with time, something remarkable begins to happen. The same pain that once made you feel weak slowly starts making you stronger. Not because the pain itself has power, but because Allah uses every hardship to shape the heart of the believer. The woman who has never been tested often depends upon comfort. The woman who has been tested learns to depend upon Allah. And there is no strength greater than a heart that has learned to rely upon its Lord. Perhaps years ago you would have broken completely if someone ignored you. Today you make dua and move forward. Perhaps there was a time when rejection destroyed your confidence. Today you understand that your worth was never created by people's acceptance. Perhaps there was a time when one disappointment made you question your future. Today you know that Allah's wisdom reaches far beyond your understanding. What changed? Did the world suddenly become easier? No. Your heart became stronger because Allah continued teaching you through every season you survive. Sometimes we pray for strength, but we imagine strength arriving without hardship. Yet Allah often builds strength the way a skilled craftsman shapes precious metal. Gold becomes purer through intense heat. A diamond forms under tremendous pressure. Likewise, a believer's character is refined through patience, perseverance, sincere worship, and trust during difficulty. This does not mean we should seek pain. Islam never encourages us to search for hardship. Rather, it teaches us how to respond when hardship inevitably comes. The difference is important. Pain is a test. Your response to that test becomes an opportunity for spiritual growth. Every challenge gives you a choice. You can allow bitterness to settle inside your heart, or you can allow faith to become deeper than before. One path leaves you trapped by the past. The other allows Allah's guidance to help you move forward with hope. Think about how different you are today compared to the person you used to be. Perhaps you are more careful with your heart. Perhaps you recognize unhealthy relationships much sooner. Perhaps you no longer seek validation from people who never valued you. Perhaps your salah has become more meaningful. Perhaps your du'as have become more sincere. Perhaps your trust in Allah has become stronger than your trust in your own plans. Those changes did not appear overnight. They were quietly built during moments when nobody saw your struggle except Allah. Many people only notice the smile you wear today. They never saw the tears that watered the strength behind that smile. They admire your patience. They do not know how many nights you spent asking Allah to help you survive until morning. They admire your calmness. They do not realize how many battles took place inside your heart before you reached that peace. This is one of the beautiful realities of faith. Allah sees the hidden effort that no human being can measure. He knows every temptation you resisted, every harsh word you chose not to answer with another harsh word, every time you forgave for His sake, every moment you remained patient even when your emotions wanted to give up. Nothing escapes His knowledge. Sometimes Allah allows your heart to break because certain lessons cannot be learned through comfort alone. Comfort teaches gratitude, but hardship often teaches reliance. Comfort teaches enjoyment, but hardship teaches humility. Comfort teaches appreciation, but hardship often teaches complete dependence upon Allah. And complete dependence upon Allah is one of the greatest treasures a believer can ever possess. My dear sister, never think your difficult days have erased your value. Your value has never depended on how easy your life is. Your value comes from being a servant of Allah. The world measures people by beauty, wealth, popularity, or success. Allah looks at what is inside the heart and the sincerity of your deeds. That is why a woman who quietly remains patient through hardship may be far more honored in the sight of Allah than someone whose life appears perfect. Do not underestimate the reward of patience. Patience is not pretending that nothing hurts. Patience is continuing to obey Allah even while your heart is hurting. Patience is refusing to lose hope when answers seem delayed. Patience is choosing trust instead of despair. Patience is continuing to believe that Allah is most wise even when you cannot yet understand His wisdom. There will be days when your heart feels tired. On those days, return to the Quran, return to dua, return to salah. Return to remembrance of Allah, not because these acts immediately remove every problem, but because they reconnect your heart to the one who never abandons His servants. When people cannot understand your pain, Allah understands. When people grow tired of listening, Allah never grows tired of hearing your supplications. When doors close in front of you, Allah's mercy remains open. When everyone else says, "Move on," Allah invites you to speak to Him with complete honesty. Never be ashamed of bringing your broken heart before your Lord. That is one of the most beautiful places a believing heart can be. Some of the closest moments between a servant and Allah happen during seasons of hardship. Those tears that fall during sincere dua. Those moments when you raise your hands before Fajr. Those nights when only Allah knows what your heart is carrying. These are not empty moments. They are moments that strengthen your relationship with your Creator. And a heart connected to Allah becomes stronger than any hardship it faces. Strength does not mean you never cry again. Strength does not mean disappointment no longer hurts. Strength does not mean you never feel lonely. Real strength means your tears no longer separate you from Allah, they bring you closer to Him. Real strength means your disappointments no longer destroy your hope. Real strength means you refuse to let pain make you unjust, bitter, arrogant, or hopeless. Instead, your hardship increases your compassion for others. It softens your character. It reminds you to be gentle with people whose struggles you cannot see. Because once you have experienced hidden pain, you learn not to judge hidden battles. My dear sister, perhaps today you still cannot understand why certain things happened. Perhaps there are questions that remain unanswered. Perhaps there are wounds that still ache. It is okay to admit that healing takes time. Healing is not forgetting. Healing is learning to trust Allah while carrying memories that once broke you. With every step forward, Allah teaches your heart that survival is possible. Peace is possible. Joy is possible. A meaningful life is possible, not because your past disappears, but because His mercy is greater than your past. Never believe that your painful experiences have disqualified you from living a beautiful future. Allah has often brought incredible good after immense hardship. Your difficult chapter does not define your entire story. One painful season does not determine your destination. Continue asking Allah for strength. Continue asking Him to purify your heart. Continue asking Him to replace sadness with tranquility and fear with trust. Keep moving toward Him even if your steps feel small, because every sincere step taken toward Allah is never wasted. One day, perhaps in this life or perhaps in the hereafter, you will look back and understand that your greatest strength was never your ability to avoid pain. It was your decision to keep trusting Allah while you were walking through it. That is the strength no hardship can take away. That is the strength Allah quietly builds inside every believer who refuses to lose hope. And when that strength finally settles in your heart, you will discover something truly beautiful. The pain that once convinced you that your life was falling apart became one of the very means through which Allah drew you closer to Him, refined your character, strengthened your faith, and prepared you to face the future with a heart that no longer depends upon people for its peace, but depends upon Allah alone. That is a strength no one can steal, and by Allah's permission, it is a strength that will remain with you long after the pain has passed. 7. One day you will thank Allah for every tear you cried. My dear sister, if you remember only one lesson from this entire reminder, let it be this: the chapter you are crying through today is not the final chapter Allah has written for you. Pain has a way of convincing us that it will last forever. When your heart is wounded, every day feels heavier than the one before it. You begin to wonder if you will ever laugh the same way again. You question whether peace will ever return. Sometimes you even become afraid to hope, because hope itself feels painful after so many disappointments. But the believer lives with a different kind of hope. Not hope based on circumstances, not hope based on people, not hope based on feelings. A believer's hope is rooted in Allah. That is why even during the darkest nights, the heart continues whispering, Ya Allah, I trust you. There are moments in life that make absolutely no sense while you are living through them. A relationship ends without warning. Someone you trusted walks away. A prayer remains unanswered for years. A door you worked so hard to open suddenly closes. You cry, you make dua, you ask Allah for understanding, yet the answers do not come immediately. And perhaps they are not meant to, because some lessons are only understood after time has passed. Think about your own life. Surely there are things you once begged Allah for that you are grateful He never gave you. There were people you believed you could never live without, yet today you realize their departure protected your heart in ways you never imagined. There were opportunities you thought you had lost forever, only to discover later that Allah was leading you towards something better. There were delays you once hated that eventually became reasons for gratitude. If Allah has shown you His wisdom before, why should you believe He has stopped being wise now? The same Lord who guided you yesterday is guiding you today. The same Lord who carried you through your previous storms is carrying you through this one. The same Lord who answered prayers you had almost forgotten about is still listening every time you raise your hands. Never underestimate what Allah can change in a single moment. A heart can find peace after years of anxiety. A life can change after one sincere dua. A person who feels completely broken today can become a source of strength for others tomorrow. Allah's ability to transform lives is beyond anything we can imagine. Sometimes we believe healing means Allah will erase every painful memory. But healing is often something even more beautiful. Healing is when the memory remains, but the pain no longer controls you. Healing is when you can remember your past without losing your peace. Healing is when you stop asking, why did this happen to me, and begin asking, Ya Allah, what do you want me to learn from this? That is when the heart begins to mature. That is when faith becomes deeper. That is when trust replaces fear. Many women spend years believing that their greatest tragedy was the heartbreak they experienced. Only later do they realize their greatest tragedy would have been remaining in something Allah knew was harmful for them. Allah's mercy is not always obvious at first. Sometimes mercy arrives disguised as disappointment. Sometimes protection feels like loss. Sometimes guidance begins with a goodbye. Sometimes healing starts with tears. The believer may not understand every decree, but she trusts the one who decreed it. This trust does not remove sadness. Even our beloved Prophet ﷺ experienced grief and shed tears. Feeling sadness does not weaken faith. What matters is where sadness leads your heart. Does it lead you away from Allah, or does it bring you closer to Him? Every hardship gives you that choice. My dear sister, imagine standing years from now, looking back at the season you are living today. Imagine seeing the woman Allah shaped through every unanswered prayer. The woman who became wiser because of disappointment, kinder because of suffering, more patient because of waiting, more grateful because she finally understood that every blessing is a gift. More connected to Allah because she discovered that people could never fill the place in her heart that belongs only to Him. Would that woman wish to erase every painful moment, or would she recognize that those moments became part of the journey that brought her closer to her Lord? Sometimes Allah answers your dua by changing your situation. Sometimes He answers it by changing your heart. And sometimes the second answer is the greater blessing. Do not allow this temporary world to convince you that today's pain is the whole story. The Quran repeatedly reminds believers that this worldly life is temporary. Every hardship has an ending. Every night gives way to dawn. Every test has a limit known by Allah. Every tear falls under His knowledge. Nothing continues forever except Allah Himself. This means your sadness is temporary. Your waiting is temporary. Your loneliness is temporary. Even this chapter will one day become a memory. The question is not whether life will test you. It will. The question is whether those tests will push you closer to Allah or further away from Him. Choose closeness. Choose patience. Choose sincere dua. Choose forgiveness. Choose gratitude, even when it feels difficult. Not because life is always easy, but because Allah is always worthy of your trust. There may still be days when your heart feels heavy. On those days, remind yourself of this simple truth: Allah has never abandoned you. If you are breathing today, His mercy is still surrounding you. If you can still raise your hands in dua, the door of hope is still open. If your heart still longs for Allah, then Allah has not left you to yourself. That longing itself is a blessing. Do not measure your future by your present pain. Measure it by the greatness of the Lord you worship. The one who created the heavens and the earth is fully capable of bringing peace to your heart. He is fully capable of replacing sorrow with tranquility. He is fully capable of opening doors that no human being can close. He is fully capable of giving you blessings you never even thought to ask for. Trust His timing. Trust His wisdom. Trust His mercy. And above all, trust His promise that He is with those who remain patient and turn to Him. Perhaps one day in this life, you will look back with tears of gratitude and quietly say, Ya Allah, I understand now. Perhaps some answers will only become clear in the hereafter, where every hardship borne with faith will be rewarded far beyond what words can describe. Until then, continue walking toward Allah. Continue making